Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacy.
And I'm Phil Thompson. We are coming to you, if you're listening to this when it's relatively fresh and new, it's about 10 days away from Christmas, aren't we?
That is correct. No, 9.
9 days now.
Yes.
Yeah. So it just depends on when you're listening. But for us, it's about 9 days away from the Christmas season. We hope that you are doing well. This is a podcast called Church Solutions Podcast, and we are really all about, our company, JSL Solutions, is all about serving churches with various
things. That
is
all we do.
Yeah, it's all we do.
So we provide, streaming with StreamingChurch.tv, Church App Live, mobile app. MyFlock is church management and websites, and then our new thing, Greeter.church, which is an online professional greeter for every church website.
Greeter.church. That's our brand new product. It's kind of in the beta phases here. You can try it for free, and just go to Greeter.church. That's actually the domain name is church.
That is it, yes.
So just type in Greeter.church, and you can find out more about it. It's really easy. Put some code on your website. We monitor your website and answer people's questions and get back to you with information. Some great records.
We shake hands and smile and do all that sort of thing.
We do all that stuff. Figuratively,
yes,
not realistically, but we're not whatever. Okay, not literally, I guess. So anyhow, we're a company that works with churches, and we are going to talk today a little bit about AV teams.
Yes, so we're going to talk about the top 9 key characteristics of a great AV team.
Audio video team. All right.
Yes.
So, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably involved in church and ministry, might be a pastor, might be a volunteer, might be a paid staff person, but you and I know that the work of ministry really depends on dedicated people, passionate people who, and many times volunteers,
and we're going to get into some of those.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of those.
Right. So
characteristics.
Yeah. And so we've talked a little bit about gifts and talents. What was that again?
I was just saying we're going to get into what it means to be dedicated and what it means to be passionate and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because those are the people you really want to look for and identify to help you with your ministry, especially with audio video. So let's just jump into it, shall we?
So number one is they have solid skills and experience.
So you don't have to know everything to do this, but it would be good, if possible, if you could find somebody that's got some skill and some experience doing this. And I understand that, to do this, sometimes you have to start green and you have to just kind of get your feet wet. But to really have somebody involved, ideally, it's nice to have somebody that really has got some skill set.
Yeah, especially the person that's driving the boat on this. Yeah. I mean, you definitely have people that you're going to want to bring on to teach and show, their way around, but they're probably not going to be the most valuable person on your AV team right away.
Not right away.
They've got some skills and experience.
Right. It's good to have that. I've got one particular person that's got some pretty good skills, computer skills, and we've had some bugs in our Pro Presenter software, and he's been real good at trying to track that stuff down. He hasn't actually been totally successful, but he's got some skill set, and he's been checking a lot of things on Windows and all that.
And there's a lot to be said for, we've got some very experienced, as in multiple decades of experience. And I would hate to see what would happen if those guys weren't there one weekend, because I've actually seen some of that happen when they weren't there, and they're calling them on vacation and saying, "Hey, I got this big echo through here," and they've got all the answers through their experience on how to deal with.
Yeah, your church. You're speaking of people at your church.
Yeah.
I worked with some of those guys 20 years ago or almost.
Yeah,
they're still there. So
they've
guys.
They've got decades of mishaps and corrections and gotchas that they figured out how to get around.
Right. Yeah. It's always good to have those people around. So, if you can find people like that and cultivate that, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that later, but it's an important thing to have. So,
right. So Number 2 on our list, and I guess before we proceed on, we're getting some of this material from an article I had come across a while back, and I'm not sure if we got any.
Yeah, Brad Hill.
Brad Hill,
is,
okay.
is the guy who wrote a lot of this stuff. He's the founder of Site Organic, which actually equips churches and also some tools. And you can just go to his website. It's siteorganic.com.
Right.
Okay.
So we thank him for this some of this content.
We'll give him some credit. One of these days, we need to interview him too. Probably one of these days. Yeah. Probably next year we're going to interview some more people. And so it's not just you and me. But
all right. So number 2 on our list is that they have the time.
Boy, time is a big thing, especially when we're talking about volunteers, but even paid people. But time is such a, everybody's busy. We're running around. Your volunteers obviously have stuff going on in their life, but you got to be realistic about this whole thing. And have realistic expectations. And so you need to have somebody or people that obviously will have the time and make the time to be able to serve.
And it can be, I was mentioning, our experienced guys and them being away for one weekend. I know that the person that was filling in, he's no slouch. He'd been doing it for a while, right. But he came in more than 4 hours before the service was to begin, and to just make sure everything was right.
Yeah.
And that's when he ran into the issue. And 3.5 hours into his struggle, he decided to call the guy that was away, and they fixed it within a few minutes. But
right.
But so it can take some time. I mean, he dedicated a whole afternoon to
fixing a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then also taking the time to make sure everything's good.
Right.
How many of us have run across this a lot, and we've probably all been guilty of it, is, we're doing some responsibility at the church, especially in the audio video area, and we just kind of show up at the last minute to turn everything on and plug everything in. And then, oops, we got a problem here. It's not working.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. How come?
Which is sometimes really surprising, because people would think, well, we got everything tuned out for last weekend and it was humming great, and we just turned everything off. We come back the next week and we turn on and nothing works anymore. Why is that?
Well, we found that true even with rehearsals and practices with music. The band's up there doing something during the rehearsal. You set everything. It sounds really great during rehearsal. And then, 3 days later, Sunday morning, you're ready to start going here, and you run through a song or two, and all of a sudden it seems like nothing's working right, or the settings are way off.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why that is. There's like a gremlin or something that comes in and turns all the knobs when you're not looking. I don't know. So time is a big factor.
Yeah, time's number 2. Number 3 on our list is that they are passionate.
To me, this is one of the most important emotions or desires to have, attitudes to have. If you don't have passion for what you're doing as a volunteer, even as a job, you're going to really run into some issues.
Right.
You're gonna find yourself easily discouraged. You're going to find yourself lacking energy
and giving up, I think, is part of the key. Because if you're really excited about it, you're willing to bang away at a problem for quite a while because you want to get that thing solved. You're passionate about it.
Yeah.
But if you're not passionate, it's just frustrating and you just want to get away.
Passion is probably one of the most important things on this list. And so if you're looking to have people involved in your ministry, especially in audio video, they've got to have some passion. I mean, I can remember many, many moons ago I got to help start a couple radio stations, and I remember spending a lot of time, particularly on the last one I started, which was ages ago, just spending hours and hours putting the studio together and hooking things up and getting things ready. And we were excited about this new FM. It was going to play contemporary Christian music, and so the passion fueled the energy to go on and go the extra mile.
Right.
And now there's times where your people need a break, because passion goes so long, and then if you're not careful, you can get burned out.
Right.
So it is important to have some breaks and make sure people aren't overdoing it.
Right. But it is a key ingredient.
It's a very key ingredient for anything that you're doing, especially this area. So.
All right. So that's number 3. Number 4 on our list is that they have discipline and patterns of spiritual growth and maturity in their life.
This is this is important, and it's sometimes this stuff has to be cultivated, because a lot of times you'll get people that have passion and they want to, they want to take the time, they have some skill set, but they're not as mature as they could be. And it really is important that this part develops. I think sometimes you can let this grow a little bit. I think it's important, but I think you also have to have patience with people and allow them to mature, you know. Uh, but if you're not careful, if they're immature, and their spiritual growth is real minimal, or they're going backwards, it can certainly be. How can I say this nicely? But sometimes people that are running your audio video, if they don't have certain character built in their life, uh, they can be hard to work for, or work with, I should say.
Yeah. And a lot of people skilled in this arena can be pretty quirky too, huh? So
well, yeah, and again, getting back to my Christian broadcasting career many moons ago, uh, it was some of the engineers I had were, they knew what they were doing, but they pretty much felt like you were subject to them, and you didn't know as much as they did, which was probably true. But their attitude, which we'll get into here in a little bit, their attitude wasn't real good at times. Hard to work with, and there's a quirkiness sometimes that can.
Yeah. So along this spiritual maturity theme, I mean, there was a theme or a notion that was promoted a while back at our church, that you're through worship as well. You're preparing for an audience of one.
Right.
So if you've got the spiritual maturity and you're doing this, as a service to the Lord, it flows. I mean, that's a characteristic you want to see in your key AV team people.
So, I think if you're a leader of this department, or leader of your church, or one of the leaders, I think it's up to you as a leader. You need to kind of help cultivate that, and help encourage them in positive ways to grow spiritually. So, that's up to you as far as how you want to make that happen. But it's definitely good when you have people working in the audio video area that are growing spiritually, there's maturity in their life, and it makes life so much easier on everybody else. Because you know what, it's a tense. When you're preparing, if you're leading music, or even if you're speaking and the audio video isn't working right, or there's issues, that can be kind of a tense thing. Sunday mornings or Saturday nights, especially if you have a presentation. It's, because if the experience, I mean, part of what I do, I'm a part-time executive pastor for a small church besides what I do here. And, it's all about, for us, it's about creating a great environment for people when they walk in, a warm experience. And when something's not working right, everybody kind of gets on edge. Those who are involved in leadership. I mean, the people may not have a clue. Other people may be walking around not knowing anything, that, that you got a problem with a computer, or a problem with a projector, or a problem with something. But, those of us who are kind of behind the scenes, if it's not working right, it can be kind of tense. And so it's nice to have some spiritual maturity in your life and character in your life, so that when things aren't going right, you're not necessarily freaking out and taking it out on everybody else.
Right.
See what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
so
true.
Yeah, we're milking this point. But
yes, so that's number 4. So number 5 is they're teachable and open to other ideas.
So this kind of fits in with point number 4 as far as maturity and stuff. I mean, we touched on this just a minute ago, but when you have this, I know everything that's going on around here, I know what I'm doing and nobody else does, you're just setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for isolation and putting walls up around people.
And I mean, my experience is, there's some of the seasoned pros, this is the hardest area.
It really is.
Because they'll say, I've been doing this for decades. They got this young whippersnapper in here trying to teach me some things that, if he's all wet behind the ears, and I need to, I can teach him a few things, and they just develop this attitude of they're not willing to listen to some counsel or some other people.
Right.
And it really is a negative.
It projects. It people can sense that.
Yeah, and the best realize that they don't know everything.
Right.
What is it that
what you don't know. I know what I don't know, or something.
Even the pros get coaches. Tiger Woods has got a golf coach teaching him how to swing the club, and you would think he would have every right to say that, he knows how to swing that club.
Well, even when he was on top of his game, I mean, right now he's obviously kind of going down the other direction, but even when he was on top of his game 10 years ago, he continued to work on improving.
Right. And he had a coach that was working with him.
He changed his swing,
right.
to get even better. So, yeah, absolutely. So they're teachable and they're open to other ideas. And that's, like you said, kind of hard to do at times, but important. Okay.
All right. So number 6 on our list is they have a proven track record of success.
Yeah, I think this again goes if you're going to actually hire somebody, or if it's a volunteer, you're actually going to put that volunteer in charge of that audio video department.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're going to put somebody in charge, they really should have, a track record of success in these things we've already mentioned too. As far as their skill set and their personality and passion in their life, and the things that they've done well.
Right.
Very important to look at some of those things.
Yeah. So that's number 6 on our list. Yeah. We're moving right along number 7, and some of these are. This next one, number 7, is they show a willingness to delegate.
This is really hard for a lot of people to do. It was really hard for me for years, because when you're going to delegate something, you have to have a lot of patience with the person you're working with. The chances are you're going to delegate something to somebody that may be a little younger or maybe a little newer, perhaps.
Right. And something that you think would take 5 minutes if you did it yourself, and it may take an hour for this person. So you're like, what's the use? But
I'll just do it myself.
Right.
Yeah. But the bottom line is the big picture. I think, again, this all deals with characteristics of ministry and audio video. You got to see the big picture. And the big picture is, when you delegate, you're helping other people. Not only do you help yourself, but you help other people, because they will begin to get a skill, and learn something.
You're growing the team, the whole AV team.
Yeah. And in the long run, that should help you as a leader of the AV team, because then it's not always on you all the time.
Right.
And as your church grows and you do more services, you've got to have more help. And so you got to be willing to delegate. I ran across this early in going back to my early broadcasting career as a manager. It was hard for me to delegate stuff.
Yeah.
And because for that same reason, I thought, I got to work with these people. It'd just be quicker if I just did it myself.
Yeah. In my technical career in the aerospace business, I remember working with an individual that had a unique skill, and he was very adamant about not showing or teaching anyone else how to do that, because he realized that, if I'm the only one around here that can do this, my stock price within this company is going to go up.
So job security.
Yeah, job security, which really ultimately was an unhealthy thing to do, because he's bringing down the potential of the whole team around him. Yeah. And he eventually, he wasn't around there anymore, but he definitely had the attitude of, I'm gonna do this myself, and I'm not gonna show anyone how to do it. So the next time it needs to be done, they got to come get me.
Right. So. Well, and again, that's a character flaw. It's an insecurity thing. And again, all of us deal with certain insecurities in our life. But, I have found this to be true, especially in the realm of ministry. And that is when you're willing to give ministry away, when you're willing to share the spotlight, which is actually our next point, when you're willing to let other people get involved,
right.
It may seem to you, if you're dealing with some fear, it may seem like, I can't do that. They won't want me anymore. But it really actually is very fulfilling to do that. And it actually increases your stock, because other leaders can realize, I can trust this guy. And my philosophy in ministry is there's always something to do, so it's, if I can work myself out of a job, I can find something else maybe, plus there may be somebody that actually is better than I am at something. So let them take it to the next level.
Right. So it's a sign of maturity. I mean, these are the again, the 9 key characteristics
Yeah,
of the
it
most
really is.
valuable AV team member.
Yeah,
So yes,
yeah.
so number 8 was it. Did we talk about that enough?
Number 8 was share the spotlight.
Sharing
Well,
the
we just
spotlight.
it kind of goes into that. So let's just elaborate on that just a little bit more. Sharing the spotlight. Of course, if you're an audio video guy, you're probably not in the spotlight a lot because you're behind the scenes.
Yeah, and
but
as you often say, is the better job you do, the less noticeable you are.
Exactly.
The worse job you do, the more noticeable you are.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I think allowing some other people to get a little bit of credit at times for things, give them an opportunity to run the soundboard, to run the video, to run the cameras, begin to work, factor that in. One of the things I do at my church, we have a small little church, about 100 people, is I'm called upon occasionally to speak. And we're doing a series called At the Movies, which is a series that there's actually taking movie clips and kind of weaving them in your message. And then, where you might use a Bible verse to make a point, you would maybe use a Bible verse and show a clip from a movie that might illustrate your point. And At the Movies is something, there's multiple churches that do it now. Life Church kind of made it famous, but there's churches that were doing it even before Life Church. So, there's this gal that works in our children's department, and she's very articulate and is really well organized. And I thought, she ought to share a Sunday morning. She should go ahead and get the pulpit and speak. Use the platform. And we decided, let's turn her loose, and it's At the Movies, so she doesn't have to talk a lot. She can show some clips, and then just kind of tie them in to what the message is. And you know what? She did an awesome job. It was awesome. And I thought, I could have been the guy standing up and doing that. And part of my reason for not doing that was because I didn't want to take the time to do it. So I was kind of like, let's get somebody else to do it. But I really felt like, you know what? I bet she could do a good job. I bet if she had a chance, she could do a good job. And she knocked it out of the park. She did great. So it's okay to share the spotlight a little bit, and again, you grow, I think, and then the person that you're kind of pushing into the spotlight, so to speak, they can grow.
Yeah.
In areas,
and it makes the whole team feel better.
Yeah, it does. And in our case, people in our church loved it. They got to hear somebody else speak besides me and the other guys. So anyhow, all right.
So number 9 on our list.
So number 9, another thing that I think sometimes we struggle with AV, and that is it's okay to compare notes with other church IT folks, other church AV folks. In fact, it's kind of nice to do that. It does require stepping out of your comfort zone and maybe cultivating some relationships with other churches. Mm-hmm. But I think it's an awesome way to grow not only yourself, but also your church's tools and your church's services by looking and communicating with other churches that do audio video stuff.
Yeah, I think it's just an incredibly valuable thing to be able to shadow another church or organization. I know that we were actually working with a church here in town, and they were really interested in how does the whole streaming thing work. We've done this a few times with some other churches. Right. And basically bring them into a service and have them follow us around and say, this is how this piece works. This is how we do this. And they get to see the whole behind the scenes deal. And I think everyone you walk away from that, you're like, wow, that was something I never really thought of, but it's a really good idea. So I can go take that to my church.
Right. I think most churches, I've been doing this for a long time. You have too, as far as working with churches. Most churches are more than happy to share with you what they're doing and let you see what they're doing. There's always occasionally one guy that has an attitude, like, well, our church is the best church and we don't want to share our secrets with anyone. But there's always somebody like that. But I've found over the years that most pastors, most leaders are more than happy to have somebody come in from another church and say, hey, here's what we're doing.
Yeah, this is how we do this.
This is how we do it. And then even pick your brain, like, how do you guys do it? And, how could we improve,
Yeah. And, we're in a unique opportunity or a unique position to facilitate some of this because we're dealing with so many different churches.
Yeah.
So if there's people out there that say, hey, I don't have anybody to reach out to, give us a call or email and we can connect you up with maybe a church in your neighborhood that you can compare some notes with. Because, all the churches have been very willing to cooperate and learn from each other. I just spoke with a guy this week that was making his way through using a TriCaster, and he's going to be a TriCaster Pro here soon. And I told him, I'm going to be using you to help out other TriCaster people, because it's just great to be able to sit down and learn from some other people or see what's going on. Because
it really is. It's just useful, and it just builds the kingdom of God. I mean, we're working together, and while we may have different churches with different ideas on things and maybe different emphasis on things, we're all on this planet together. We're all trying to reach people and share God's love with people. So it's important to be able to do that and be willing to do that. Step out of your comfort zone and say, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something I can learn from somebody else.
Right, and we have a lot of visibility to what certain churches are doing really well. So we can go through and say, well, this church does aspect A just great. Let me put you in touch with them for that piece of information.
So you can do that by just sending us an email, support@StreamingChurch.tv. That's our email. You could always go to StreamingChurch.tv and chat with us on there, or myflock.com, or churchapplive.com. Kind of like you, I can't remember what we do. And there's the new product greeter.church. You can chat with us on there during business hours, and or leave a message, and we'll connect you up with some people. So, all right, good deal. So, if you have some input on this thing that we're talking about here, this topic we're on, characteristics of a good audio video team, we'd love to get your input on it. If you disagree with some of that, we'd love to hear from you as far as that goes too. And you can always catch us on iTunes. Look for Church Solutions Podcast, or any podcast. How do you say it, Steve? Any podcast provider, your favorite podcast?
Any podcast player. Go to your favorite podcast player and search for Church Solutions Podcast.
Yeah, and you can find us there. Or look for us on YouTube. We got the audio on StreamingChurch.tv. Just look for our YouTube channel, and then NewMediaMinistries.tv is a little newsletter we send out email-wise. You can see it on the website, NewMediaMinistries.tv. We can help you if anything. We would be more than happy to try to do that. So, all right, so we're out of time. Again, if you're listening to us here during the Christmas season, we hope that you have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. And for Steve and I, we're the guys from JSL Solutions. We hope that you have a great day. We will catch you next time for another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. Take care.